And we're recording. So this is the Kubernetes SIG-network meeting for July 25th, 2019. I think first on our list, we've got Valerie for issue triage.
Okay, let me bring that up. All right, is that shared okay?
Yep. Looks good.
Okay, so external traffic policy, local type load balancer, AWS NLB health checks failing. So is this us or is this something we should punt to SIG AWS?
Does it mention if it's using IPVS?
Let's see. No.
Because I know there's another issue around IPVS node ports for LB health checks not working because of the way the IPVS proxier will add the LB IP, and so like on the route back to the LB, it kind of black holes it because it thinks it's a local route. But yeah, I think probably punting this to SIG AWS or the AWS subproject is probably better.
Interesting. How do I assign it to the subproject?
You could do that for now, and I can follow up and.
Okay. Yeah, I know the NLB ingress is not super stable in general. Okay, failing unit test.
Hack.
Interesting. So is this? Yeah, this looks like it might be something specific. Does anyone want to volunteer to follow up, or should I? I'm guessing this is not something that anyone else is reproducing at the moment.
Shouldn't work on Mac anyway.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay. Next, kubeproxy IPVS, sync logs, fault on master, kube mark drop missing.
Is kubeless started or?
What version of IP tables do they have, by the way? Does it say?
I don't see it.
That'd be something good to ask. I'm wondering if it, or is kubelet running?
Anyone want to volunteer to follow up more with this? Okay, who's assigned?
You can assign that one to me, Casey.
Okay. All right. Next, let load balancer bind unschedulable node.
It looks like the annotation, not the. There's a node annotation. That thing we talked about.
Relax it.
Yeah.
You want unschedulable node to be part of it.
Yeah.
Rather than skip.
So there's actually a chat open that proposes some changes to this.
So yeah,
Okay.
I have seen something related to this. So like probably worth a discussion in the SIG. Is it reasonable to add a load balancer specific node taint, so that let's say all the load balancers will react to that particular taint effect? Because the current node taint has basically 2 or 3 types. One is no schedule, basically mark the node as non-schedulable, and then no execute, basically effectively just kick out all the pods on the node. And then like right now, there seems to be a lot of ask of flexibility to include a certain node or exclude a certain node from load balancers. So does it mean we should have a more generic feature, like some kind of a specific node taint or something to?
I want to second that. So virtual kubelet is one of those scenarios where there is code in the cloud provider that says, or we have a label that basically the cloud provider says, oh, it's a virtual kubelet node. Then don't include it. Also, there is the situation where the cluster spans multiple resource groups or multiple deployment units, specifically Azure or others, where most of the cloud will try to bind the node in a specific network or a specific resource group. And users may want to have other nodes in other resource group for security and other stuff. So we have also used the same label. So we've been facing this requirement. I've been dealing with it using custom labels. So all I'm trying to say is I second that request.
So I think this is a known feature request. So we can probably mark it as resolved, and maybe even close it as a duplicate, because I also kind of recall there being another issue tracking this. But somebody might
have
find
the
that.
cap handy, or should I just say that we're working on it and leave the user to figure it out?
You can
assign it to me. I can link the cap there afterwards.
Andrew?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. There we are. Okay. And E2E sig-network services should be able to create a functioning node port service.
Why is this in network triage? You can assign this to me. It's fine.
Okay. Minhan, right?
That's John. Eric. Yep.
Sorry.
Yes.
John.
Sorry, who am I assigning it to?
Leo Chen.
John?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, you're coming through a bit faint there. All right, after deleting the service, kubeproxy cannot delete the corresponding IP tables rules. Sounds nasty. So.
You can assign this to me, Dan Winship.
Okay. Is this anything you have like existing knowledge or suspicions on, or?
Not this in particular, but I've been poking around the IP tables proxier in the last few years anyway.
Looks like it might even be related to that other issue, because it's saying a chain didn't exist.
All right, next one. Delete a service corresponding to IPVS record not removed when kubeproxy is in IPVS mode. Sounds it's kind of similar.
I can take this one. Andrew, second.
Okay.
Andrew, you're putting us all in shame, man.
Are you the IPVS person now?
Well, I've been taking some of the issues, that's why.
Okay. Kubernetes service sockets get disconnected if there's no traffic for a period of time.
I see a priority awaiting more evidence label. Maybe skip to the end and see if we're waiting to hear back.
Yeah, looks like we're still waiting.
And the short answer is yes, it does, because most of it's done through contract, and contract does have a timeout. But I think the timeout's like 5 days, not 15 minutes.
Okay. Does someone want to follow up with that?
Can assign it to me. No, KHNID, yeah, that's the first guy.
Yeah, I should remember that. I've rebased off your branches enough. Okay. Kubeproxy failed to refresh IP tables, IPVS rules when load balancer service used IPv6 address.
Oh, what the hell? Assign it to me as well. I'll
Okay.
I've been looking at IPv6 stuff. So
All right. All services losing endpoints after a couple of hours on Windows Node.
SIG Windows, not SIG network.
Is anybody from Windows here?
You can do Patrick Lang, and I can tell him he sits beside me. Just sign Patrick. Yeah. I can.
Patrick Lane?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Kubernetes start to fail for streaming server stopped unexpectedly. All right, they're not sure about what can run where. Might be user misunderstanding.
You can stick this one on me.
Yeah. That room's really testing my ability to remember voices. Okay, it takes more than 50 seconds in average to add or move node by service controller.
Oh, this one.
Oh,
It's already assigned.
Wait, it's assigned to who?
Us.
Okay.
See, that's what I have the reminders for.
Yeah, no need to.
Yeah,
it's triage.
Yep.
Probably should have filtered on unassigned as well. All right, Core DNS not working when replicated.
Chris, are you ever there? You can give it to me on the way.
Sorry, assign it to who?
John Bellameric.
Okay.
This is not looking at it. Oh, it's something with kind as well.
All right. No CNI gets installed even though it was explicitly done. So this might not be us.
Yeah, give that one to me.
Okay. Add DNS test suite for conformance end-to-end.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, you can assign, I asked him to create this issue, so you can assign it to me.
Okay. Is that John again?
Yeah, it's John again.
Do we consider DNS a target for conformance?
Yeah, it's already in there.
It's pretty necessary.
But it's technically allowed.
Strictly speaking, DNS is optional, and you can run a cluster without it.
Yeah.
So is it really conformance, or is it like a DNS conformance?
It is one of the better
It's not really
specified things.
something sig-network needs. yes, basically right now it's basically required for, I think we're saying it's required for conformance, because there's already a couple of tests there.
There's even a spec.
Okay.
Yeah, this is just to the tests there are very thin, so this is like to test the whole spec.
Okay.
But eventually for conformance, like really we should break it. Okay. All right. Another topic.
Okay, are we good on that one?
Yep.
Okay. Next one, SRV record not created for named port of service without selector.
Is it a
Without selector.
real bug?
How do you create an SRV record without the new records?
No, I mean if you manually program endpoints.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Is that for QDNS or Core DNS?
One is
It's
it?
not specific.
Okay, we need to follow up.
I can follow up.
Cool.
I can assign to myself.
Thank you.
Who am I assigning?
I just commented P. Ramesh J,
Okay.
but I find it.
Thank you. All right, kubectl port forward drops the connection after 10 minutes.
Not sig-network.
Not sig-network, right? Yeah.
That's either cloud provider or CLI. It depends on the cloud, by the way. So. Thank you.
IPVS proxier wrongly unbinds address when multiple services have the same external IP.
Why would multiple services have the same external IP?
Maybe different aliases to the same backend.
So you're saying with an external IP, not with a load balancer IP, they're having an external IP on the service. What's the load balancer then? Different ports.
Yeah.
Why don't you assign to me and I'll get to the bottom of the external IP thing.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, another failing DNS test. It should provide EC hosts entries for the cluster.
Which environment?
AIO cluster. I can follow up with this as well.
Okay.
So that's a way to run conformance tests.
Yeah.
ERAM. Yeah. That's it.
Okay. Static IP for pod.
This is a feature request.
Yeah, sounds like they want stateful set changes.
You can assign it to me. I love closing these.
Oh, they want to put the same IP in the name.
All right, service YAML enhancement for SIP servers. Something tells me this is a similar deal.
What does he want? They want to publish stateful set via service and cloud log plans for servers. Some issues.
Yeah, you can assign to me. We don't need to read it here unless we feel like doing design review. But I'll look at it.
Not a bug shed call, ideally. All right, add limit of used zones and IPs for service cloud load balancer.
That should be
next. Is this the same person?
So actually, he's linking it. Yes, I believe he's the same person.
Okay.
By the way, multiple people actually reference the same discussion. Like I wanted my IP to be in a zone. I don't want it to be like multi-zoned and stuff like that.
You would be curious to know more what people are doing with that exactly.
Same guy.
The answer is always SIP.
He's been busy. Sergey been busy.
Yep.
This one I think though it can be SIG AWS. Do we not support?
Yeah, they have SIG AWS. They added it.
Then why is it?
Do we want to just remove network then?
Yeah.
Sometimes kubelet errors when disable IPv6. Definitely need more information on this.
Well,
I
it's
think
something-
this is talking about disabling IPv6 in the kernel, and I think we don't really support that. I don't know.
So even if it's running IPv4, it still needs kernel support for that?
You have to go out of your way to not use IPv6 in code when it is disabled in the kernel.
Gotcha.
Yeah, like if
How about-
localhost, points to both IPs.
Don't we have listen address as a flag, so they can force to listen only on 4, like 0.0 kind of story?
Theoretically.
The impression I'm getting is that like it's a little bit leaky.
I mean, the warning there was from Docker, so it doesn't, maybe something Docker
Yeah.
internally is doing. Oh, no, okay, sorry, no, Docker.
It's the internal Docker shim.
That's
Right.
Does someone want to follow up with that?
I can take care of it.
Yeah, we probably do not. Listen IP probably doesn't carry through to the internal Docker shim.
That makes sense. All right. Proxy, better metrics, or failed actions.
I think this is one we raised as a result of last meeting.
There is another issue. Tim, you had opened an issue a while ago that was about somehow adding returning the last service state to the debug endpoint, and we already have metrics now for the last time the proxy synced. So what is this one doing that those two might not do?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer. I would have to go back and look at exactly what the metrics we have are reporting and figure out if there's a gap.
Does anyone want to follow up with this?
Yeah, just leave it with Casey, and I guess since he and Winship and I will work on the same team, we'll talk about it eventually.
KC meaning Squeed, not
other KC.
Not Trello, not
Sorry, whoops. All right, last couple. Option to keep source IP address for traffic destined to cluster IP from outside the cluster. So it looks like a re-request.
Suggest load balancer and then local
Something
traffic one.
explains the cluster IP.
You can give this one to me.
Was that Casey?
Yeah.
The other one this time.
Yes.
Can you also assign me?
Yeah.
This starts to overlap with some of the multi-cluster stuff, so I'd like to at least follow along.
Isn't that related to the same discussion we had that I think 2 SIG meetings ago about control over source IP for the egress? It's the same discussion, right?
No, this is for ingress, not for egress, though.
I think it's kind of a similar family of stuff, though.
I think it sounds like they want, there it is, external traffic policy local
For cluster IP.
Yeah.
for cluster IPs.
Yeah, that's why they're saying it's a reopen of an issue, I think.
Right.
How would that actually work, though? I mean, if you're running kubeproxy, for example.
You'd have to only advertise nodes that had backends for the service.
Right. Okay.
The same as we do for external traffic policy on cloud load balancers.
Yeah.
Got it.
How would that work, actually?
So
It has very strange semantics.
You'd have to advertise through BGP or something. I assume that's why they reference the Calico implementation. That node X can service cluster IP Y because it has a backend for Y. If that backend moves, then that BGP route would have to be torn down.
But if it's local to you, you would.
No, but with
It's like
external
a very
traffic
strange
local,
thing.
you could advertise those cluster IPs to from any node without,
Yeah.
and be able to reach them. Just external traffic off the local.
You only want to advertise the ones that have backend.
With local, yeah.
Unless it's a black hole.
No, because they pick it up.
Today, if you look at the IP tables rules, if you send traffic through a cloud load balancer to a node that doesn't have a backend, and you have traffic policy local, it will block them.
Right, and you have to.
X and Y and Z.
Right, I'm just saying you could actually just advertise cross traffic.
You could, in fact,
I think that's what they're saying. They have some tool.
Yeah, yes, there are a bunch of things out there that advertise the cluster IP, but if you want to retain source IP, you have to have the only local. Got it.
So we're about 30 minutes in.
Probably time to look at the actual agenda.
We have 2 other items on the agenda. I say let's go to those, and we'll probably have time to come back and finish the rest of these off. So,
thank you for that, Valerie.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you very much. Dan Williams.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up that kind of point from some of the IPv6 dual stack stuff, and that was kind of getting discussed on that PR. Did you want to talk about that at all, Cal, or do you want to?
Yeah, I can talk. So we can drive the discussion from the use case, or we can drive the discussion from certain limitation ISO and cite the way Kubernetes assign IPs to services. Both will get us to the why it's done like max of 2 sort of. I don't mind converting max of 2 into a max of 2 entries in a single like list comma separated kind of story. But I just want to bring the people attention to the fact that services IPs should always be 2, shouldn't be more than that. From a use case perspective, there is really, it's fictitious IPs, right? It's all fictive. It doesn't have any existence whatsoever anywhere. Even if you do stuff like what we just talked about, BGP, it's always around an IP pointing to a pod. What users will worry about is really that the IP of the pod that the service is selecting, all right? Whether the family or as we break out into multiple, like n number of pod IPs, I want to listen only on the third or the IP labeled in a certain way. But nobody really bothers about, hey, I have this set of IPs for one function and another set of IPs for a different function, because it's just for service discovery. The other thing, and I detailed that in the comment I laid out in response to Andrew. The other thing I didn't say out loud on the comment because I thought it would be a bit confusing. There is inside the master, there is a thing that's in the registry that assigns the IPs and snapshots, the entire set of IPs used and all of that. If we started using multiple sets, then the snapshot process is gonna add a lot of latency to the way services work and so on. And it took me a bit of time to change the code, not because of anything, it's because of being afraid of adding latency that's not needed.
You mean latency here by doing 2 transactions instead of 1?
It does. So the way it works is it's snapshotting every so often, all right? And the way it snapshots so far is there is a registry, there is a sub key or sub tree inside the HCD for service IPs. And now there's 2 of them. If we make it n, then we're basically looking at serious effort in snapshotting and maintaining these sets. It's a snapshot per IP CIDR or service IP CIDR. I can point you to the code if you want.
No, I'm familiar with that code. I'm familiar. But I don't think we'll ever need more than 2, right?
I don't think that's what do you mean more than 2?
I mean, we're saying it's 1 per family, and I mean, realistically, there could be another IP family, but probably not during our careers.
That's not what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say, a CIDR is per CIDR, not per family. So if I have 2 6s, then I will have two snapshotters. If I have 5 4s and 2 6s, then I will have 7 snapshotters.
Discontinuous ranging?
Yeah, but
So-
we're sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say,
Yeah.
just to be clear, that I was thinking more along the lines of just the command line argument types.
So that's fine. I can
fine
change
with
that.
2 as a max. I just wanted to. I guess I'd personally prefer seeing it in the same argument and just making that argument into a comma separated list as opposed to adding another argument and variables everywhere.
All right. That's
it.
So
that's fine. By that's no argument there.
Okay.
One of the reasons that Dan and I were talking about this today, which I think is why it ended up in the agenda, is there is a use case for having multiple CIDRs of the same type, which is that we keep having users who say, oh, I realize that I need to make my service CIDR bigger. How can I do that? Because I started with like just a /8 or something. So how can I do that without taking my cluster down? And right now the answer is there's absolutely no way to do that. You have to take your cluster down and rebuild it from scratch. And one idea that we had was if you could have 2 service CIDRs, then you could add one, move all of your services over, and then delete the old one.
I'm quite sure you can change the service CIDR, restart the API server, and you're fine.
As long as you grow the CIDR, like
Yes.
if you then
Right.
you double it
Right.
down or double it.
But some people are like, nope, I need to move it from 172.17 to 10. Whatever. And we've
Right. So,
tried
like,
documenting our way out of this problem, and there are always users who screw up and need to be saved later.
That's it's a kind of worms because the same will apply for pod IPs, right?
Yeah.
Yes, we in
That's
fact
why we
already
have
implement
multiple pod
that.
IPs. We have multiple cluster CIDRs already.
Yes, so we have customers who have these same problems, although less on the cluster side, the service CIDR side, and much more on the cluster CIDR side. We have started to investigate what would it take to allow multiple disjoint CIDRs at the cluster level and at the node level. We hadn't really thought about it at the service CIDR.
Somebody actually sent in a PR that's in my queue that want to change it like 50 miles.
So the disjoint CIDRs for pod IP when you're using the VPC or the VNet to provide IPs is another problem that everybody's talking about.
So
right
I
now.
would like to say for now, we're not tackling that at the same time, not in the same breath anyway. Right now, the limit is 1 CIDR per family. And if we want to consider multiple CIDRs of the same family, we will have to retool the way the snapshot is done, either to carry multiple bits or some other data structure that is more amenable to that. And that's a totally different cap.
All right. So out of this discussion, the action items is changing the CLI secondary dash yada yada into the primary becomes a comma separated ones across the API server and the controller mesh. That's
I could live with that.
All right.
We weren't really thinking that the multiple service CIDR thing could be solved now, but just that the decisions we make now might make it easier or harder later. And so if possible, we should avoid the decisions that will make it harder to do later.
All right.
I think that makes sense.
Point taken.
Okay. Thanks,
Tim,
Cal.
because no. The guy, you're making sense, right? I was just worried about the snapshotting piece. That CLI is easy, right? I can do that.
Yep.
Because if you ask me to change the snapshotting, I would have.
No, snapshotting. We'll deal with that later.
All right, Tim, because they're gonna yell at me because of the field names. Please at least give me the field names or like agreement on field names and values for the service type spec. Like there is IP family field, all right, and right now it's not the best. And I would like to, because this will require like a refactoring, changing the field name. But it's a compiler, something I can catch with a compiler. I'm not worried about it. But I just want an agreement on the field name and field values.
Is this the comment where there was some redundancy in the name? Is that what you're talking about?
So the field right now is service IP family, and it carries IPv4 or IPv6,
right.
IPv4 service, IPv6 service, or cluster default.
Right.
All right. That's like I have a feeling that Mr. Tim will look at this and start yelling at me. So I just want to get through the yelling part so I can do this.
Come
Did he
on
drop
now.
off?
No.
No.
I can't yell at my coworkers.
No, I just get through it. Honest, just because I know it's not the best field names, right? And I looked at the API spec, trying to get inspiration. Maybe I missed it, but it's not there. Like, should it be IPv4 service or IPv6 service, and cluster default becomes cluster default service? What's the value there? All right.
I will pay close attention to that.
All right. Right, that's really it. And the last thing I'm asking people to take a note of is, I know it's peak summertime, but code freeze is August 29th. So just keep that in mind.
All right.
All right.
So does that, that's a good lead into the next item, I guess, on timeline for reviews?
I think that was the discussion there.
That was the discussion?
I cannot by any chance ask people to commit to anything, not because of anything other than it's summertime and people are off and things are crazy right now. I just want to make sure that everybody understands when is the code freeze.
Okay, so we weren't actually agreeing on intermediate deadlines between now and code freeze, just alerting folks that code freeze is August 29th.
And actually, I'll go one step less abstract. That's 4 weeks, right? So anybody who wants to be part of these reviews or wants to get something through, 4 weeks. That's 2 more signals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No pressure.
I'm having IP tables nightmares right now.
So do we feel confident that the right people will have the time to review the dual stack stuff by then? Like, everybody's is everybody not on vacation for 4 weeks, or?
I'm not on vacation, so I can definitely review the main portion. However, I'm starting to stress a bit about getting the proxier stuff done, because that feels like it's at the very tail end. But we saw with phase 1, there's a very huge, almost done stretch that happens, and then review can take a long time.
Valerie, your effort in creating the PR is probably more valuable to the group, but it's your choice. Right?
Okay, I can focus on that then.
Yeah, I don't want you to have IP tables nightmares and then nightmares because of reviewing my code. So one set of nightmares I think it's good enough. It's up to you, really.
Yeah, I'll focus on that then.
The rest of the team, however, doesn't have any types of IP tables nightmares. So we should cough up reviews. All right.
Can't say I don't have any type of IP tables nightmares.
So then, technically speaking, he gave a pseudo LGTM, aside from the CLI piece, which is, to me, is a good indication that we're actually in a better state than for the first part of the phase 1 was a bit harder than this one. The fact that we have a pseudo LGTM early enough in the phase means that at least the code review is going to be easier.
Of course it will be. There's no API changes now.
Yeah, that was a pretty big part.
There is one.
Yeah, service IP family.
I mean, I'm making API changes.
Additive
Admittedly,
API changes.
They're trivial ones, but still.
Sure. I'm fairly confident that we can still pull this one together.
All right. Okay.
All right. In that case, we've got about 18 minutes left. What would we like to do at that time?
Maybe if anybody else has anything to talk about, otherwise we could go back to triage.
I want to heads up. I want to probably in 2 weeks or so, I'm just going to ask people to think about the egress IP story and have some basic ideas on how we approach that. This week, I had a meeting with some of the people who speak with customers as a daily job. And one of the number one's priority is we need control over the IPs used by pods as they come to our network or go to the outside, because they have partners, like the customers have partners, they do IP whitelisting and all of that. And even on the on-prem, they need to turn on off sort of IP firewall rules for those IPs. So it's becoming a blocker to some of the seriously enterprisey business kind of stuff. So we need to think about that.
And the control that's already there is not good enough. They need more precise or more a narrower range of IPs. Is that the problem?
Yes. They want to know. Do you want to know exactly? Do you want to have at the egress IP be either static or predictable? Right? Like it's actually static. Those pods belong to let's say a financial app doing AP, account payables, and I want them to carry this IP. And the same the same nodes may carry different pods that work for AR, account receivable, and I want them to carry a different IP.
So in other words, instead of having the node's IP for the egress traffic, you want to have a egress IP per pod or potentially egress IP per service?
Probably the way I talked about it, it's a selector. Sort of look at the ingress controller. I know it's notorious, but it's similar concept. Like egress with a selector. So like I have absolutely no ideas on how this will work yet, but think of a concept called egress controller, and then it has selector, and then select pods with certain labels. That way, pods can belong to different services, different apps, different deployments, and then they go out with an IP.
So at that point, though, how do you restrict access to those egress IPs? Because anybody can tag their pod with whatever they want. So is there security issues there with random users hijacking an egress IP?
It becomes a story of RBAC and stuff like Gatekeeper.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's the standard answer to that question.
By introducing the topic, you have inadvertently decided to have the conversation. I think we should, if we're going to start it somewhere, I'd like to start, if I could, with a background doc of what you think the requirements that you're hearing are. Certainly, there are many. In fact, didn't somebody just assign me a static IP pod one? So I think there's lots of issues here that we should accumulate.
There is a cat that came up a couple of weeks ago, I think, with exactly this.
Yeah.
We wanted to NAT API or something. It might be good to dig that up and see if it is aligned.
The problem is even more complex on a cloud, because on a cloud where you don't assign public IPs to nodes, you're egressed via load balancer IP sort of. So it's even more complex when you add cloud providers and different load balancers and different platforms to the story.
Yeah, so, I agree. That's why I think it's important to get to what we think the requirements are before we start designing.
Yes. So I'll take care of that, but in a couple of weeks. All right, let's just shepherd the dual stack stuff, and then we look at that.
I would like to say probably not the next meeting, but the one after, maybe the last one of this cycle before code freeze, or maybe the first one after code freeze. But soon I'd like to do a review of all of the sort of KEPs that are in flight under our umbrella and other issues that are like significant, and make sure that we all agree that we're still doing them and that they're appropriately making progress and prioritized, et cetera. Just because I think we've got a lot of balls in the air right now, and I would like to just go over it once.
I think that would be September 5th. That's the first one after code freeze.
Something like that sounds great.
All right, I added notes to the agenda for that meeting.
So it looks like the topic about endpoint slice cap has snuck onto the agenda since
Yes.
since we last talked about it.
So the enhancement freeze is coming up. So any more requirements, ask that you guys wanted to tag on, and then
We should probably get the KEP merged, and we can iterate on it. We like
Supposed to do like merge early.
yes.
okay.
I know the release folks keep yelling at me in particular about not polishing KEPs too much, getting them merged, and then building extended consensus. So
All we're at is the Ingress GA cap also is merged.
wasn't the KEP itself didn't get merged?
The cap merged, but updates to the cap are.
Well, that's fine. I think like the enhancement, we can make reasonable changes to KEPs after the enhancement deadline. It's like get the thing in and agree on it.
Get the file in.
I think maybe
Agree on the file name.
Maybe I'm bending the rules there. We should get clarity, but okay, Minhan, the floor is yours.
Yeah, so like I think we have addressed most of the comments, like all of the comments. I don't see new asks. Mostly, I think the confusion now is surrounding the support for topological services, and then I think the solution is good enough, or because the topological service itself is not implemented, so it's sort of hypothetical at this point. But I think the API can fully support it. And if there's no more ask, I think the alpha API is good to go, and then we can implement it and see how it goes, and then actually test it out in scale test and try to get it in 1.16 timeframe. So yeah, if there's no objections, we can get the KEP merged, and then the alpha implementation, get it going.
I'll make another pass through it ASAP.
Okay. All right, that's it. That's
Cool. Thank you. Shall we try to knock off another few issue triage?
Sure, let me pull that back up.
Issues?
I might not have 10 minutes more queued up, but
That's fine. I think I'll be happy with a couple extra minutes.
I have stuff to run and do as soon as this is done.
We can go file some more bugs. Or write
Please,
some.
no. All right, so external traffic policy local has no effect on the requests made from the node local addresses.
Yeah, this is what we were discussing earlier.
Did we come to a...
No,
Did
I
we
was
come
just
to a
going to make that
conclusion here?
comment. External traffic is not node local traffic. So that kind of sounds like a feature request.
Well, I think what they're really asking for is topology services.
Yeah, they want to go to the back end that is closest.
Yeah. You can assign it to me and I'll link it back to the service topology cap.
oh, it's already linked.
Yeah, Andrew already did that.
Andrew,
All
you're
right,
on the ball.
should we just close it then? And done. Next, cluster port name is used as an implicit endport selector.
Cluster service.
This seems odd.
I think I understand it. If you have a named port in the service definition and you don't reflect the name in the endpoints definition, then users don't know how to map them together. Right? Does that sound reasonable?
It makes sense. I'm not sure if it's reasonable design-wise.
Or is it saying that we do map them together now and we shouldn't?
Yeah, it's complaining that we map them like that.
You can assign this one to me. It sounds like fun. Mostly my feelings.
That code.
Yeah, you guys you feel free to weigh in. It feels like it might be working as intended.
Yeah, close to.
I think it's working as intended. The question is just, is that a gun or not. At least that's my take.
On
Yeah, I agree with what you said.
All right. I'll look at it and
Yeah.
we can discuss it.
Sure.
Figure out if maybe there's an accommodation for special casing single ports or something like
Okay. Kubeproxy use IPVS mode, IP set error. Definitely need more information on this.
I think we've done this one.
that. Didn't this one get fixed by specifically uppercasing the protocol name? Like, wasn't that, I remember reading that PR a while back.
already assigned to Andrew.
All right, it's already assigned to Andrew, since he seems to be everywhere all the time. I'll just let him handle it.
Yeah, I guess IPVS is his problem now.
I mean, not exclusively, but thank you for stepping up.
He seems to be the main one who's taking them.
Absolutely.
So another IPVS, kubeproxy command line, not in effect. I skimmed this, but I didn't follow up properly with it.
This is a case where between the config file and the flags, the config file wins. And if you scroll down, I think I asked Mike Tuffin what's going on with that. There we go.
Yeah, so config winning out makes a bit more sense the grand scheme of things, but I guess it's a case of like what is the most reasonable user behavior.
From a compat point of view, I think the flags should win. Felt like that was what
that's what Mike says here.
Yeah, that's what we decided on, at least for kubelet. The question is whether we think it's worth fixing at this point for kubeproxy, or just the real answer is, in general, you shouldn't overlap them.
Yeah.
Maybe we can provide a warning or something if people overlap.
That makes sense.
I don't know how to do that since the parsing
It's
logic.
probably this is just as difficult.
Yeah, that might be very messy to do.
It's already assigned to either here, right? Let's let it cook for a little while. Mike just moved, so maybe he'll come back to this one.
Yeah, I'll look back at this again if I have time with dual stack stuff.
Okay.
All right. Connections to service cluster IP with no endpoints are not rejected. I thought we solved this a while ago.
No,
It's assigned to Dan already anyway.
Yeah, we thought we fixed it, closed it, and it got reopened, and I haven't looked at it since then.
We solved it for the floating IP stuff for direct service return. That was the issue.
It's possible that we did fix it and it's just user error, but anyway, I will look at it.
Okay. All right. Disallow mutating finalizing service objects. Does anyone have more context on this?
Yeah, there was, I forget what led up to me filing that bug, but I was surprised to find that an object that is in the finalizing stage was still mutable. So I filed a bug, and then I was disavowed of the notion that it should be immutable, at least not globally. So I guess Sihong filed this to figure out if we should make services immutable once they are finalized.
Right. So the context is we added support for finalizer protection on service load balancer that by attaching finalizer to the service object, and then we ensured all the load balancer resources are cleaned up before the object actually deleted. Then team brought up some problem that, oh, if you delete the service and then you edit it to some other type, or maybe change the port, and then it may have impact on how the resources are cleaned up, and it could be problematic. So, and that's why we have the issue open to discuss. I mean, like you could potentially, although you could solve it other ways, not be able to figure out what to clean up because the user went and like gutted this definition.
So I think it would be a reasonable thing to do, or at least to try, to say if the deletion timestamp is set, then disallow any mutation.
Right.
The controller is going to have to mutate it.
Not to spec.
Right.
Yeah.
But Brian brought up another point that if you added a service and then you immediately delete it, and that is similar to the situation here, because it went into the service controller as a deletion operation somehow.
Yeah.
So yeah, so even if you disallow mutating, finalizing service object, it doesn't gauge that.
It's true. But really, there was just a bug where it was trying to it was ignoring the finalizer and trying to do something. I forget what was the.
Yeah, there's some tricky cases in how we process the service.
Well, I think the root of the problem is that we don't do a great job reconciling against cloud providers for load balancers, mostly because the naming and the API rate limits made it impractical. So we should have, maybe we can generalize this into the how do we close the race around deletion of a service when it has load balancer resources.
I'm surprised that we're the only people who have this issue. Like other objects in the system doesn't have the same problems.
No, they probably
Well, there was
do.
a master issue, I think.
Yeah, CRDs.
I mean, it's a race that you have to lose, and you have to have the controller restart during that window. Otherwise, like, things will be okay. It's just there's a potential data loss event if you have all the right things, which probably does happen, but nobody notices.
Mostly results in things getting orphaned.
Yeah, right. It's not going to do anything really bad except leak a load balancer, which you won't notice until you get your bill. Right?
Okay, I'm just about to get kicked out here.
So we're at
Who wants to
3:00.
take this issue?
Jihan, can you generalize this bug?
Okay. Yeah, let me do that.
Thanks. Mr. Hone.
Okay, I think that wraps us up for today. Thank you, everybody. We'll meet again in 2 weeks.
All right, thanks everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
You think that's unusual?